Hey everyone! Welcome to Make Your Peace, a 4YE podcast about Wynonna Earp. I'm Catherine Meushaw.
And I'm Lara Hayes.
And today we'll be discussing Season 3, Episode 1, Blood Red and Going Down. And as per usual, before we get into it, I want to say a quick thank you to all of our listeners for your feedback and just for listening in general. And welcome to new listeners. I know we've picked up a few, since we stopped, since Season 2 ended and stuff like that, and while we've been making up with our Season 1 podcast stuff. So just in case you didn't go back and listen and this is like your first time and stuff like that, welcome. And as a quick couple of newsy things, once again, I am recapping. So keep an eye out for that on the Twitter. I'll also mention something in the outro because I know sometimes people skip through this stuff. So I'll mention it twice. But I am recapping, so there'll be short recaps that hopefully make it out by Sunday after the episode airs on Fridays. And I'll retweet those on the podcast Twitter. And then also, this past weekend was San Diego Comic-Con, and our editor-in-chief had press room access. So she's in the process of uploading the videos from the press room on the YouTube channel. So we're just for your excitement on YouTube, if you're not listening to this on YouTube. And we'll also put out a tweet about it as well. So make sure you check those out. I gave her some good questions, so it should be some good answers. And she said it was really funny. So make sure you check those out. And I think those were the only newsy things. I'm super excited that we have a new episode to talk about, that we can launch into all new theories and see how wrong we were with our previous theories. So with that, what was this episode, Laura?
When a mysterious bus full of sexy strangers rolls into town, Wynonna must figure out why they're in purgatory before the entire town falls under their spell.
Okay, yeah, I guess you can keep doing the recaps.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I know you want to start with the title.
I do. So the title for this episode comes from the Tanya Tucker song of the same name. And my before watching sort of take on this one is pretty simple. It is blood, lots of blood. I had a feeling that this episode would have something to do with blood, and I feel like I was right about that.
Just a tad. I mean, we should probably get this out of the way. It was a vampire episode. And you can't really have vampires without blood, and apparently you can't have them without super sexy pink fog either. So,
Catherine, you just opened up a whole can of worms. So
I know
we got to talk about this. We got to talk about this right now. This is vampires, you guys. Anyone who knows me knows that I am trash for vampires. I've written a book about vampires. It's a whole series about vampires. What you may not know is that glamoring or thrall is my favorite vampire ability. So to see these like glammed out vamps like seducing our beloved Nedley when they've barely stepped foot off the party bus warmed my cold dead heart. Plus, super tinted party bus, that was such a good idea of, how to get around. I love that. Let me see. Okay, what else did I love? Okay, so great way for the undead to travel. Also, you're joking about the pink fog, I think, or the pink smoke, but yeah. I think it's a great update to Dracula's fog.
Yes.
Dracula had the mist, or the fog, or whatever you want to call it. If you watch the Bram Stoker's Dracula with Gary Oldman, you'll see, the fog that they use, and that is, green fog. So I thought this was really fun. I thought the pink was just a hilarious choice. Oh, gosh, there's just so much. I'm trying to get it out now. I'm trying to just get everything out. I love that what we're dealing with here in this episode too is not simply vampire sex appeal. We see that on Buffy, and you see that on True Blood and stuff. The Buffy vampires had sex appeal, but we didn't see Thrall, controlling Thrall outside of the Master and then later Dracula himself. And no, I'm not forgetting about Drusilla. Drusilla was hypnotizing people. Okay, so I think I got it out of my system. I just needed... I feel like these vampires were for me, you guys. I feel like they were for me personally, and I was just really pumped about them. So now we can get down to brass tacks. I have flailed sufficiently.
Alrighty. Well, while you were talking, I was like, crap, I had such a good lead into the vampire thing, and I forgot it, but then you added Buffy anyway, so I was good. Speaking of... Yeah. Since Laura mentioned her book, but didn't actually give you the title of it, it's Terrible Praise. You can find it on Bella Books. You can also find it on Amazon, maybe? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. But also Bella. So yeah, check it out. I'm a terrible, terrible friend and haven't really started... I've gotten like a couple chapters into it, and it's good. I'm just bad about reading. It's nothing against her book. So that's me plugging your book, so you didn't have to do it completely. But check it out.
Yes,
she's also gotten she's gotten some really good reviews. So there is your self-promo that you didn't have to do.
Thank you, my friend.
You're
it's
welcome.
way less awkward when someone else does it.
I know. I've got your back. Don't worry.
Yeah, you're the best.
I try. Anyway, I love a good vampire. And, we got the European vampires, also a classic. Mm-hmm. The one thing that really deviated here was the fact that they did actually walk around in the sunlight.
Yeah, I'm also curious if you were, like, looking at, like, their mouths, they all had those, like, elaborate grills in, and so I would be, I wish I could ask, I would be really curious to know whether this version of vampires has fangs, or whether or not they use the grills specifically for that purpose, if they're functional as well as, like, ornamental.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to kind of know that as well, because, I mean, we do see people are bitten, but we, like you said, we do see that crazy grill situation. So, not really sure what, like, if it's just they like to be, ridiculous and, dramatic and, flashy, also, like vampires do. But
yeah, and if anybody knows that, like, for a fact, if it's been, like, mentioned somewhere and I've missed it, if you could tweet it at me, you're going to hear our Twitter stuff like several times. If you could, like, let me know, it's just like a personal, like, I'm curious to know about it.
Yeah, please tweet us, let us know. I haven't read anything, but I also have so far missed a lot of the San Diego Comic-Con stuff so far. Like, I haven't. Yeah. Somehow I missed the panel, like one of the panel tweets, so I'm still got to catch up on that. Maybe somebody asked.
I'm going to take some blame here too, you guys. You plugged my book for me. I really appreciate that. So let me take some heat here. Y'all, I don't know when we're going to get this episode up, but I was moving, so we kind of had to work everything out around my schedule. So if this first episode is super late, that is on me. So you can also direct your shade at me. I will take it.
You're good, Lara. It's okay. I'm excusing you because you were moving. It's not like you were just being lazy.
True, yeah.
Alrighty. So let's see. We got our vampire notes in, which means we got our Buffy reference in. It's our first, it's our quickest one. I feel, really good about that. I knew it would be. I mean, they were fun. Alright, but now we've got our vampires out of the way. I did forget to mention that we are given indication that there is 19 weeks, so almost 5 months. I had to think about that for a second, between the season 2 finale and this episode. So in that time, we've had some stuff going on with, Wynonna kind of training a lot and going after a lot of revenants and stuff like that, trying to break the curse and go after Bolshar. Apparently, Nicole and Waverly worked through the secret wife thing and the hot tub kiss off screen. So that's a thing. And when this episode started, Doc was still not really talking about Alice, except for making offhand comments. And Wynonna was using training as a way to kind of get him engaged. So I think that was everything. I wanted to mention that. Also, If you are able, I guess Emily and the writers worked with the Yarn app. It's Yarn texts. I think that's I don't know. It's the Yarn app. You can download it on your phone. And they did, basically, it's like you can see it takes place in between the season 2 finale and the season 3 premiere. And it's like a bunch of text conversations. There's 10 total, like 10 quote episodes total so far. I believe there's supposed to be more coming out that you can check out that kind of gives you some insight into what's been going on. I completely forgot to send them to Lara, so I'm not going to bring them up right now. So I will.
Okay.
I'll bring it up as it comes along. But if you wonder, like, oh, hey, she mentioned that, but she didn't talk about it, that's probably because I like to blindside Lara only a little bit at a time. But I just did want to let you guys know in case you missed it. The app has a free trial for a week, but it does actually cost, like, there's a subscription cost to it. So just keep that in mind as well. Maybe you can get somebody to tell you about it. I know screenshotting and stuff like that is frowned upon because it doesn't really help, like, in any way, shape, or form. So there's that other piece of Earper news that I forgot to mention, but it does give us some information about what the gang was up to in that 5 months.
My favorite part of this is that you are 100% certain that I had no idea that was a thing, and I certainly haven't downloaded the app, and you are right on both accounts. And you've also stepped into this role of like, I have to inform her because she will not find out any other way, which is also right.
You're welcome. But I also, just in case there's the random Earper, and I tried to phrase that in a way that didn't, like, completely have it all on you. But just in case there's a random Earper who also didn't know, which is fine. And also, I didn't really know about, like, the subscription or that there was a free thing. I basically waited until the last day. Apparently there's more now, so that plan backfired. But I waited till the last day, did my free thing, and then just sat there and read all of them. So that was how I did it. And then I immediately canceled my subscription. Because I don't want to pay $5 a week for this app. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So. But yeah, just, I'll mention that stuff as it comes up. So, like I said, if there's something that may or may not have been answered and you're like, but you forgot about this, I may have genuinely forgot about it. But like I said, I try not to blindside Lara too much.
I do appreciate it. It's very easy to do.
I know. I like, you've had a busy week.
I've also just not been on Twitter a ton.
Yeah, I haven't yet either, so it's fine. You're good, it's all good. But yeah, so what were some of your favorite things about the episode? Favorite moments of the episode? Let's dive right in with some of that. Besides the vampires, obviously.
Other than all of the vampires. Other than that, I'm very pleased that this episode starts with the entire team working a sting operation together.
Yes.
It sets a nice tone for the year, seeing everyone working together toward a common goal. In this case, killing revenants and getting answers about Bolshar. But I just thought that was a really smart way to start the season.
I did enjoy that. I mean, full disclosure, it'll come up at one point or another. This was not my favorite episode of the series, and I'll probably get into that at some point a little bit later with some other stuff we're talking about. But yeah, that was definitely that was a highlight for me, is seeing everybody working together, and I enjoyed seeing Jeremy get a hit in with a Revenant, and then, Doc swooping in and saving him and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed that too. I like starting with the group all together.
Yeah, me too. I think it's, it's inevitable. Every season you're going to have your ups and downs and stuff like that. And I think it's just a smart way to approach it, to, have everybody working together, just to kind of kick things off.
Yeah, and kind of really, like I said, we find out a little bit later, like after a little bit into the episode, not too far. I think it's still before the credits. I could be wrong. I think it's after the credits. I don't know. Correct me if you feel desired to, but it's really not a big deal. But we do find out like the 19 weeks thing a little bit into it. So it is nice to, they've got this nice well-oiled machine kind of thing roll like with them. That's still, I mean, with a little bit of issue, but, Revenant gets away, Waverly gets it with a nice shot. Another Revenant gets away. Jeremy gets to smack it with a sign. So it's nice to see. I like it when we get the group together.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I'm going to bring this up now because otherwise I think I'll probably forget about it. But did you notice that all of the Revs involved in the Pussy Willow brawl had like covered their faces?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was like pretty nifty because it's sort of a non-verbal way to tell us, right, that they are afraid of Wynonna. They're afraid of Wynonna knowing who they are, or like what number Rev they are, like whatever. More so than they were last year. So I thought that was cool. It shows that, her presence and the job she's doing is really having an effect on them.
It's also, I think, kind of a nice nod to that, like, traditional, like, outlaw thing with the, the bandana over your face. That's like a classic, like, Western thing, I think,
Yeah, for sure. For sure, dude. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a nod to that as well. And see, this is my first opportunity to mention one of the yarn texts. It did mention, I think, in one of them that she's knocked out a fair number of revenants in this time, that she's about halfway through the 77.
Dang.
Yeah, I think it mentions in one of them, and bear with me as I look it up.
It's okay.
Yeah. Oh, she says, yeah, she thinks she sent at least half of them. So yeah, that's a good chunk because I think at this point, since we actually didn't see a lot of Revenant deaths in season 2, if I remember correctly, I started tracking them and then I forgot to. So, I mean, I think we were down to 60 some odd in the season 2 premiere. So we were probably down to maybe at best in the 50s before, so she's knocked down a fair amount.
Mm-hmm.
So in the 5 months that they've been between, if she's right, which we know how Wynonna is not great with math, she doesn't love it, which I don't blame her. So yeah, I wanted to mention that, and that's probably the last time I pull up one of the yarn texts for this episode. Maybe we'll see. Yeah, it was a good start, and you can't hate starting with Wynonna on the mechanical bull. That was another.
No, you can't.
And way hot up on the rooftop. I mean, okay, really, Waverly and the big gun, and getting excited about the big gun. So yeah, I like that. It was a decent start. So, what else you got?
It was a very sweet morning in bed for Way Hot. I have more to say about that, but for now, let's sit with those early morning cuddles and be grateful for them. And I will talk about more later.
We were promised domestic Way Hot, and so far, we have not been disappointed.
They delivered, yeah.
Yeah, so that came up during Klexicon. That one of the things we can look forward to with season 3 was, some more of a comfortable family vibe with them. So I'm glad that we got to see that. And like I said, like you said, I've got some thoughts and feelings, but we'll get to that in a bit. We've got a whole, I think, section on some of that stuff. So
yeah.
Yeah. One of the things is kind of near the end of it. I really, really, really kind of loved how excited Dolls got about the vampires and like about his vampire killing kit.
Mm-hmm.
I really loved that.
That ranked very high on my list of favorite things. We even got like a steak making montage, which this episode basically needs no Buffy parallel. It is a Buffy parallel.
Yeah.
But there's another one for you. Just super cover our bases, but I am with you 100%. I thought it was adorable that Dolls was so excited to use his BBD issued crossbow. Just precious.
Well, I mean, it was a pretty badass looking kit. I mean, I want one.
Mm-hmm.
Let's no chill sci-fi for those. Yeah, I love that whole, I mean, really, the second Dolls gets in the basement there, because just him, like, knocking on the coffin, and Wynonna
Yeah.
being like, come in! Like, all of it was just, it's so great. But I like that. And then, I know I keep picking out, like, little stuff for, like, my favorite moments, but oh well. Like at the end too, Doc eating Chinese food with his big knife, which had to be pointed
Yeah.
out to me. So shout out to Nick for pointing that out to me. Because I totally, like, somehow I had missed it through two viewings. I watched this episode twice and didn't catch it that he was eating the Chinese food with his big knife.
But that's kind of like a testament to that character, isn't it? That
Mm-hmm.
you so believe that that is normal that it didn't even like register in your mind. You just totally believed that that is the way he would eat Chinese food.
Yeah, it didn't really, like, it didn't click at all that that's what he was doing. And so I really, that made me laugh once it was actually pointed out to me. It really made me laugh. I was like, yeah, that's Doc. Yeah, it's completely an in-character thing. It's like nobody wants to mess with chopsticks.
The
It's gotta-
entire like way hot bathroom scene in the club
Mhm.
was a gift. I love when you can successfully pull off like one character, it was Waverly in this case, like rambling to someone who isn't listening or like is not there, and they're just having this entire like one-sided conversation. And her interaction with Petra, I watched it probably 3 times. I laughed every single time. Waverly's dorky little, like, you made me pee a little, and her, you're so beautiful, and you can't even see it, like, to Petra's, like, total lack of reflection. I know that was kind of, like, an on-the-nose joke. It did not cheapen it for me, though. I still I loved it. And Catherine, she's such an adorable nerd. She steals my heart in every single episode, and she's right.
I
Just
know.
best crime scene ever.
Yeah, I mean, there were aspects of that bathroom scene that I didn't love, and might as well get to it now. But no, I mean, since you brought it up with You Made Me Pee a Little, that I actually cackled. Like, when she said that, I straight up cackled, because that was just, it made me laugh. I was just like, I don't do that often either. It just, like, it killed me. It was so good.
It was.
Just a lot of their delivery this episode was really good with Kat and Dom especially.
Yeah.
The way Kat delivers, her name is Petra and I love her.
Yeah.
So I know that dives into a little bit of our quotes, but that usually comes up and happens. The one thing I did not love about that scene is I didn't necessarily love how Waverly was reacting to Nicole having a panic attack.
Mm.
It's probably like my least favorite Waverly thing ever was when she's in the bathroom, like Waverly line ever, because she's like, I've got this going on, and my girlfriend's having a panic attack. And, I mean, she does follow it up with, not that it's about me, but to me that felt so much more like oh, my bad. Like, it felt less like oh, my bad, like I was really being insensitive, but more of I have stuff too, and it's never about me. And that's how it read to me. If you disagree, that's fine. And that's not just to you, that's to, like, everybody listening. But it's just like, it put a bad taste in my mouth with how Waverly reacted. So it's like, the rest of that bathroom scene was fine. It's just, I did not like how it started.
I can see your point. I think I took it as it was so out of character for Nicole that Waverly was kind of at a loss. And that's still not a terrific way to react to, like somebody almost fainting or like having a panic attack. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. But I think that was sort of what I took away from it, I guess. That it was so out of character that Waverly was like, and I don't even know what to do in this situation. Because, like, you're the one that calms me down, and I don't know how to calm you down, kind of a thing. Like, what do I do? So,
and I get that. Yeah. And I get that. And I kind of, like, I get that that's what they were going for. I just think it wasn't well done in this case. Like, I think maybe a tweak of the lines or maybe a tweak of how they did it would have presented more of like the, I don't know, like what to do for you now, instead of like the weird feeling I got from it. But like I said, I'm probably in the minority. A lot of times I am with stuff like this. So I just like, I wanted to like, since I was thinking about it, I figured I'd bring it up, but it's just like that one just really kind of like didn't vibe with me well. But like I said, I get that they were coming at it. It's like, cause as an audience, seeing Nicole react like that was very, very odd.
Right.
Because she's usually, she is usually calm, cool, collected. She doesn't normally like freak out or panic or whatever. Like we've never seen Nicole have a panic attack, especially when she's working, especially at a crime scene. Because it is kind of where we do see her kind of relaxed at work most of the time. Mm-hmm. So it was a very, very like startling thing to see, to be like, oh my gosh, like this is a really severe thing happening. So I do kind of get it, because they do kind of do that very quickly the second Nicole takes it. Like I said, that how it was, I guess, written a little bit just kind of bothered me. Mm-hmm. So.
All right. Well, I'm gonna take some heat off of you, and staying on the way hot train, like unpopular take, I'm sure, but I don't love that the way hot drama of season 2 was featured as a joke in bed between Waverly and Nicole and not dealt with directly or referenced in a serious manner.
Man.
I love these crazy kids as much as the next queer, but, and I want them to be happy, Catherine. God knows I do. Happy, alive, and together. But secret spouse, kissing other people, these were huge issues last year. And we spent screen time on them. And while I know we're dealing with a 4-month jump and conversations were most likely had, I do wish that we were privy to those. And frankly, even if they end up being in this app, I'm still a little bit disappointed. Because it's just as revealing to show a character resolve a conflict as it is to throw them in one.
I like how you started that with, I'm going to take some of the heat off you. But know that I have a lot of the same feelings, and know that I'm going to jump into it too.
Okay. I tried.
So, I know. I love you for trying. But we're doing this. We waited as long as we could to get into this. We waited as long as we could. Because no, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. I was really upset that we didn't get, I'm with you. And to let you know, we do get them talking. One of the Yarn app episodes is them kind of talking, but it's still not that resolution. It's still not, they are currently the main couple on the show, because while you've got Wynonna and Doc, they've always been in this weird state of flux, and there's something going on with Wynonna and Dulles.
Yep. So
you've got Way Hot, and I love them too. But my problem with this is, you have to show the good and the bad. You can't just brush stuff under the rug. And like you mentioned, they spent screen time creating this drama.
That's what I'm saying.
For me, it just makes it seem, and I believe we talked about this, honestly, our listeners probably have a better grasp on this than I do, because I listen to these when I edit, and then I don't listen to it again. But I believe this came up when the kiss happened, and maybe when the secret wife happened, is there was a level of it feeling like drama for drama's sake. And it feels even...
Sorry, yeah.
No, go ahead.
Well, to just sort of underscore what you just said, our stance on this is not new, because I don't have a terrific memory, but I do remember you and I having a conversation that was like, the one thing that I really hope that does not happen is that all of this stuff gets dealt with off camera.
Yep.
And that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, we said that a lot. We said that, like, I'm pretty sure we have a podcast episode or 3 where we have said that, and I know we said it in other situations, like, we've had this conversation. So it's like, and to me, I love the show. And I feel like I need to say this because right now I'm not being overly positive about what's happening. And I feel like I need to reiterate, I love the show. We both love the show. We wouldn't be spending the time doing this. Like, folks, a lot of time goes into podcasting. And I also recap. Trust me when I say I would not be doing that if I didn't love this show. If there wasn't a love for this show. But to me, doing that, it happened off screen. When you spent time on the drama is lazy. And it's just, it's not, I don't think it's doing your characters a favor. And I don't think it's necessarily doing your fans a favor. I mean, if we want a positive relationship or a positive representation doesn't mean that we don't see these characters fighting. I want to see them fighting and resolving their problems.
Right.
Like, that's what I want to see. Especially, like, you know, for me, like, seeing positive reinforcement, seeing people work through those issues is such an important thing. And I think that gets looked over when discussions of positive representation comes up. You know, we don't just need to see these characters, but we need to see them interact in a positive way. Because there are people, plenty of people, a lot of people who take cues about how to interact socially from media. It's, right. You know, sometimes our teacher is media. You know, that's why it's important for a whole realm of things to have, like, for media to have a responsibility with representation in all facets and everything. So it's like, I want to see that because it's like, we still don't have a lot of positive representations of queer relationships. Mm-hmm. So, sorry, that was a very lengthy ramble. Actually, no, I'm not going to apologize for that. This is my podcast. I'm going to do what I want.
Do what you want.
Damn it. No, but yeah, I mean, so it's like, that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, I mean, this isn't me saying, like, the writers are the worst, or whatever. This is just, I don't like how this happened, and to me it just feels like it was an easy way out.
Yeah, it's, don't tell me that they're past it. Show me how they worked past it together.
Show, don't tell.
Yeah, and, you know, like I said before, it's about balance. We spent time on the conflict. We should have spent time on the resolution. That's it. That's simply it. If anybody has a problem with me saying that, like, that's okay. But that's what I'm saying. You spent time here, you spent time cleaning it up. And they didn't.
Yeah. And, oh damn, I just had a thought and it just went and flew away, and it was a good thought, and it was kind of flowed into a nice thing right now, and it just went away.
You know, I'll also say, too, benefit of the doubt, this was the first episode, so we don't know what could come up in later episodes. I'm not terribly hopeful,
right?
Because there's been a time jump. So, sure, benefit of the doubt, it could come back up, it could be addressed, but we also jumped months into the future, so I don't think that that's likely.
And thank you, because I remembered what I was going to say. And here's yet another thing that will not win me any points with some people. But, like I said, just a bit ago, this is my podcast. So, if you don't like it, tell me. I'm happy to engage with people. Like, if you disagree with something I'm saying, like, tell me. Like, I'll have that conversation. Because this is what relates to it. You know, I said that this wasn't my favorite episode, as I just lied into it a little bit. But I'm not doing that, like I said. You know, another thing that wasn't my favorite is it felt a little like they were trying too hard or a little fan servicey. And let me be clear, this was fan service completely directed at me, because I'm a gay woman with a love for Buffy and a love for this type of show and stuff like that. So the vampires, the adorable way hot scenes, that was directed at me. But it also felt like it was, some of it felt like it was, like something was lost with it. Like it was, like good, like better writing was kind of sacrificed for it, if that makes sense. I have a point. It's, it keeps like going away, I swear to God. But it's just like, that's kind of what it felt like. It's like, everybody talks about how much they love Way Hot, and, it felt like, oh, let's give you Way Hot being cute, because I know, like, that's what you want right now, and we're gonna rip your hearts out later, because it's Wynonna Earp, and nothing stays happy, and the episode ended with the sisters getting in a horrendous car crash.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know, I think maybe I made sense with what I was saying, and once again, I love the show. I just want it to be the very best it can be. And I mean, that's what you want as well. Like, that's what we want. We just want the show to be the very best it can be.
Yeah, dude.
Bail me out before I say something else that alienates us from the fandom.
Okay, can we get more Waverly British accent? Because that
was please.
That was a lovely throwback to episode 1 of season 2. I thought that was totally precious. It was brief, but I did like that they hearkened back to that in the first episode of season 3. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, I liked that too. And anytime that Waverly does stuff like that, it just makes me happy. Yeah, so I enjoyed that. You know what else I really kind of enjoyed? Addressing Doc's kind of postpartum stuff with Alice. I liked how Jeremy was like, asked him, he's like, have you heard about postpartum, like male postpartum depression and stuff like that? And I do like how they kind of try to address some of Doc's feelings towards this loss, And I mean, Alice is still alive. She's just, they had to give her up and stuff like that. So I did kind of like how we got to see some of that. Mm-hmm. So, especially with, we're seeing pieces of it with Wynonna kind of full steam ahead, like, I'm going to break this curse and stuff like that. That's how Wynonna's kind of handling all this. So it is nice to see Doc dealing with it a little bit too. Yeah, absolutely. So I did like that. And kind of sticking with the boys for a second, Doll's swift and effective defense of Wynonna to that warden was heartwarming on so many levels. Every mean-spirited word that warden had to say, Wynonna has heard 100 times before. And Dawes knew that. It's why he shut it down. On some level, Wynonna believes those things about herself, at least a little, Yeah. And it's also why she was so quick to identify herself as his subordinate, and why he was so fast to identify himself as her equal. And that was a really beautiful moment. Yeah, I really like that moment as well. And I even like how when they're in Wynonna's car afterwards, and she's just like, how did you know I was there? And he's like, well, you've been sneaking away more often, so I followed you. And it's like, okay, that's not how you find out why obviously she was sneaking away for a reason. But I do like how he's like, I thought you would be more upset. And, he kind of, he helped her out and he was there for her. And I think he was a nice reminder, like you were saying, that, she isn't what people are saying, spend most of her life saying about her. So, yeah, that warden dude, kind of a jerk. But yeah, I did. Kind of a huge jerk, yep. I really like that moment with Dolls as well. One of my favorite moments, bullet points, is just like, yes to party looks. Yeah. Yes, give me the gang in formal wear and I'm a happy person. That was also, like, kind of a neat way to start, wasn't it? Like, that was sort of because, they're not a very formal bunch. No. And, we ended, season 1 with this, glamorous party, everybody all dolled up and everything else. So I thought that was like a really kind of a neat way to kick this season off, to, kind of show them in their best threads.
Yes, I would be happy if they continue to give me the gang in formal wear. And in case y'all missed it, Nicole's outfit was a pantsuit. Emily tweeted out, one of them, Emily and Kat tweeted it out. I think Emily was like, BT dubs, this is what this was. And then Kat was like, here, have the whole outfit. So make sure you look that up on Twitter because it's fabulous. So I had to mention that. That was a lot of my favorite moments that we kind of covered. Except for the one last thing, I did really kind of love Doc freeing himself from the stripper pole and then running barefoot in the damn snow.
Yeah, it was also just a really great shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were a lot of there was a lot of pretty good direction. Oh, speaking of direction, Melanie directed the Way Hot bedroom scene.
Yeah, girl.
Yeah. So, fun fact, if you guys didn't see it online anywhere, Melanie was the one, she was shadowing the director and stuff like that, and she actually directed that one scene, so.
So cool.
Yeah, it's really neat. But yeah, there were a lot of, like, direction and editing things I really liked. I know I mentioned the car crash, but, like, that was kind of it's awful because it was a car crash, but it was also, like, a beautifully put together scene.
Mm-hmm.
So I did like that too. There were some editing and direction and directorial moments that I really, really liked in this episode.
Yeah.
The music as well with that scene. The music is always good in this show. They always knock it out of the park. And I cannot remember the name of the person who does the music and stuff like that. I can't remember her name. Somebody tweeted at me because I know it's handy and chances are I'll forget. But yeah, it's the music's always good. So that last scene with the car accident was just like, that scene just kind of gets to you a little bit, and it's well done.
Yeah. I've also, this is sort of a sidebar, but I've also appreciated the tweets that have followed after with people like, tagging like Geico and Progressive and stuff. Just the fandom being funny. Like, I was genuinely tickled by that stuff.
I have totally missed all of that because my initial thought when that truck like got beat up, like the second the truck went over and it's like when we see it all kinds of messed up was, oh God, Bonnie's going to be so sad.
Oh yeah.
Because, for those of you who don't know Bonnie, she runs the Wynonna Fans Twitter account and she does the Tales of the Black Badge podcast with Kevin. They went on a set visit last year and she lost she just lost it when she saw the truck. So it's like, everybody's, Bonnie loves the truck. So yeah, that was honestly one of my first thoughts was, oh my gosh, R.I.P. truck.
Hopefully they get it patched up.
I hope so. I hope that's not the end of Wynonna's truck. That'd be pretty sad. But like, I know we brought it up a few times. I guess we should also mention, like, holy crap to how that episode ended. Was not expecting that.
Yeah, I feel like I was always like bracing for like a Mack truck when I was watching like Person of Interest, because it seemed like every other episode they took somebody down by just like plowing them with a truck, but I didn't see it coming this time. And I guess I will drop my first theory on you now. I do think that Bobo was the one who dragged Waverly away from that wreck. We didn't see a face, but I did notice what looked to be an elaborate, albeit dirty, fur collar. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if that was Bobo.
You are not the first one I've seen who has had that theory. I think I was the only one who literally didn't notice the coat when Waverly was getting dragged away. A lot of times, I think it also is because of how I sit with my computer, too. But it's like, I'm either taking notes or, like, tweeting or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It literally took somebody mentioning it in, I think, the Whiskey and Donuts hangout, Friday night after the episode, for me to be like, okay. And then when I watched it, I was like, I see it. So Yeah, that would be interesting because as far as we know, he was in the well. I mean, he's had 4 months, 5 months to get out, but
Right.
Doc Holliday was in there for, a long, long time. So, you know,
Well, we also don't know what's in that well, I don't know.
yeah,
We've seen him move like rocks that we assume contain like some kind of iron ore or something like that. And now we're speculating even more about like the composition of the well. But that's the truth. We don't know. We don't know
yeah,
what's down there, and we have seen him move, rocks that contain, we assume, some sort of like metal or like
hmm
substance. So I think that would be fairly easy to explain away, given the powers we have established that Bobo has.
yeah. And we don't know if the gang is checking on the well.
True.
So, yeah, it could be anything. I should have known it was coming more because, every time you have a scene where you've got a character driving and they're looking a little bit too long, to their passenger or whatever, you know that there's going to be an accident.
Yeah.
You can't look away that long. So, should have known it was coming, but it's still, like I said, it's still, like, surprised the crap out of me. And just Waverly screaming as she's being dragged out of the truck is...
Yeah, that was something else.
Poor Waverly, man.
Poor baby. It was an effective misdirection, too. Wynona's handing her the visitor's pass, and you're very focused on the drama that's unfolding with Mama Earp. You know what I mean? So you're waiting, there's this secret between them, and Wynona's trying to get up her courage, and that's what you're paying attention to. She's going to drop this bomb, and then, yeah, you get blindsided by the car accident.
Yeah, I mean, it really, it was a well-written kind of thing there. It's not quite how Wynonna wanted to deliver the news, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't think that went the way she pictured.
No.
I think it's wise for Wynonna to fear telling Waverly that she's known where Mama Earp was the entire time. And this was something that you and I had an opportunity to talk about at the end of, season 2. Waverly hates to be kept out of the loop. She hates to have her feelings spared when she could have been helping instead. But there's also this instinct, I think, in older siblings, especially when they were raised in like broken homes, where you try to spare the feelings of your younger siblings and you try to shelter them from pain wherever possible. And that impulse is rarely met with gratitude later in life. Right. It's something that develops early, and it hangs around way too long, and it's not embraced later in life. And I don't expect Waverly will be grateful when she finds out that Wynonna has been keeping the truth from her about their mother. I think that Wynonna is afraid for a reason, and I think she's right to be.
Yeah, damn, because Waverly, it's not just Wynonna, it was Ward, it was Willa, and, it's just everybody but Waverly knew where their mother was. And it's like, there is that kind of, we know that Wynonna knows where Michelle's been, and it's like, Waverly has that line about,
the rodeo.
But yeah, when Waverly's talking about, it's that moment where she's like, talks about, she used to wonder if their mom left for the rodeo circuit with her magical Pegasus jelly bean. And that puts such like a, Waverly's an adult. She's, 21, 22. But it's still like, you can't help but have that moment for like child Waverly where you're like, oh,
right.
She had this wonderful idea that her mother ran off to do something like that. And, everybody but her knew where she was. And she was in prison. And I'm going to stand by that. Because that's how it was presented. And it was a very weird thing to have Wynonna visiting her mother at a prison, considering how season 2 ended.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, in an interview, Emily did say that Michelle Gibson, not Earp, is at a facility, oh my god.
Psychiatric facility?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh my god. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I don't know what's wrong with me today. I'm like losing words all over the place. She says that Michelle is in a psychiatric facility. And yeah, okay, but it's still, we are given the feeling that it's a prison. I don't know many psychiatric facilities where the head of the facility is referred to as a warden. They talk about parole. Mm-hmm. And she's wearing, prison orange.
Yeah.
And at the end of the episode, when Wynonna hands over that badge, Waverly asks, a prison pass? Yeah. So, before you all at me, yes, I'm aware of what Emily said, but I'm also going off of what was presented to me in the episode. And it was presented to me as a prison. So, that was a very jarring thing to find that out. And it's like, there's a lot of levels there with why Wynonna might have kept that from Waverly too.
Yeah, the thing that bugged me about it on a very basic level, I just assumed that it was a prison, right? And I'm really bad about reading interviews sometimes and like stuff like that. Like I'll be really slow to get to them. So you're the mm-hmm. one that told me what Emily said. I just assumed that Michelle was in prison. The hardest thing for me was, all right, so what was that ending in season 2? And that was mm-hmm. something that like you and I discussed before. And it's especially jarring for me, and I don't think that this will surprise anybody who listens to us regularly, because I do a very good job like putting myself in the story. And I know that I go looking for, clues and stuff like that. Like, that's my jam. That's what I'm about. And hopefully that's what I bring to this podcast. So when there is a like a disconnect like that, like end of season 2, we see Wynonna outside in a big open space coming up on someone that she calls her mother. And then we pan to, see episode 1 of season 3, and this woman is incarcerated. Those things are especially jarring for a viewer like me, who my first instinct is, for whatever reason, let's just call it low self-esteem, to always assume I am wrong, or I have missed something, or I have forgotten something, because it happens to me so frequently in my normal everyday life. I've forgotten something. Whatever. I wasn't paying attention. I was daydreaming about vampires again. Whatever. So I had a very basic qualm with all of this, and that was just, what do you mean she's been in prison this entire time? What was that last scene of season 2?
Yeah, and I mean, I come at it a little bit differently because, once again, if you listen to us regularly, I like to nitpick sometimes. And it's not, like I said, and like I will keep saying, I do it out of love, and it's just how my brain works. I like order. And I like, being able to connect the dots, and I like being able to manage things like that. So, with something like this, it is jarring, like you said, and even fun glimpse into our podcasting, we Skyped so you could watch that episode.
Yeah.
Lara couldn't. She ended up buying the episode on iTunes. Don't come at her for, not helping or whatever she did. Promise. She just watched on my cable, so it still counted. But I remember, you asked me about it. It went to a commercial, and you're like, wait a minute. Am I remembering correctly? And I even, like I said, in that interview, Emily also addresses that. And, she's at a psych facility. She was on a walk. She had a blanket around her, having outdoor time and all that stuff. And I get that. Okay. And I don't know how facilities work in Canada. I'm only familiar with facilities around here. And generally, when you've got a patient like that, you know, it still is a locked down facility, especially with what we've seen. So you wouldn't just have clients just kind of wandering unless there was somebody in view. Now, we did get a lot of close shots, so we don't know. But also, like, she just had a shawl on. She didn't have a blanket on. She had a shawl on. So that's the kind of nitpicky crap I do. It's just me. And like I said, it's not because I hate the show and want to, like, tear it apart. It's just how I love the show. Because I am that person who will just pick. Y'all, I can't watch the Harry Potter movies because I am that, like, much a detail person and that much of an order person, and it really bothers me some of the things that they tweaked or left out or did differently and stuff like that. I can't watch. Like, I literally cannot watch the movies for a series that, like, I grew up with. Like, that's where I'm at. So, which again, this is not new to anybody who has listened to every single one of our episodes.
And before we move off, like, that too much, like, I'm just going to get this out of the way, because this is another thing, you guys, that Catherine had to reassure me I was not just forgetting, because that is what my friends have to do for me. But I was like, wait a minute, Gus is Michelle's sister? Like, has she always been her sister? Have they always been family? Because if any of you have gone back and listened to the episodes that Catherine and I are recording for season 1, since we didn't have the podcast back then, we've, like, been going back and catching up. There's actually a section in the podcast, like, in one of Gus's, like, last appearances in season 1, where I'm talking to Catherine, and I'm like, so what's the deal with Gus and Curtis? Are they just, like, close family friends? Are they just, like, whatever? And she's like, yeah, they are. And she sends me this tweet that's from Emily, and she's talking to me about it on the podcast. And so we're watching this episode together, and they're referring to Gus as Michelle's sister, and I was just like, wait, have they always been sisters? Am I forgetting? And, like, it's not that I care. It's not that I don't want Gus to be her sister or, like, anything like that. It's that I was watching season 1 and I was looking for those answers. And the answer was, she's a good family friend. Curtis was a good family friend. Not they are in-laws. And so when those things don't mash up like that, I just assume that it's my brain not working right. You know what I mean? And so that's really discouraging for me when that kind of stuff happens. Like, it's personally discouraging because I get down on myself about it. Like, God, Lara, remember, like, come on, like, what are you doing? And it isn't my fault, so.
It's not your fault. No, I mean, and like I said, I think we experience similar feelings about it, but we come at it with a completely different direction. You know, I get upset and a little discouraged because I'm like, wait a minute, I do remember this. Like, I was immersed in the fandom. I do remember this. And you're coming at it with, like, wait a minute, brain, did you lie to me? Like, what happened? Did we forget? Did you betray me?
I came at it with, I'm the worst. Like, every time.
How dare I?
Yeah.
No, and I mean, like I said, I even, like, because I am that person, and like I said, anybody who listens to us knows how anal retentive I am about looking stuff up. And I even, like, looked for that tweet. I'm like, I'm not crazy, right? Like, I did, but yeah, because Emily did say, you know, neither Gus nor Curtis is related to the Earps. And, you know, Curtis was Ward's deputy, and Gus is kind of, like, the friend aunt. You know, a family friend aunt. That was how, you know, we were addressed. Like, that's how that was kind of addressed for us. I think it was after season 1, so in between season 1 and 2. So that's where I've been coming at it with it. So it really threw me to have, oh, well, your mother's sister, Gus Gibson. It was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
But it was interesting because we also, you know, it brings kind of another layer to the AU episode we got, where Waverly was Waverly Gibson.
Yeah.
So maybe there was more to it.
Sure.
Maybe. It could be a stretch. And I know I'm not...
It's also, to be fair, right? Like, it was not directly addressed on the show until now.
Correct.
Like, to be totally fair, we were, working with these interviews and these tweets, and now it's all spelled out on the show. So that's the way it is now, and that's fine. You know what I mean? But it's just like, it's not what I believed it was, so that was a little bit disorienting for me.
And I think that's honestly, as I deviate from our conversation a little bit, I think that's honestly sometimes a struggle with having this stuff online, like having more to add with the episodes. Because,
yeah, for sure.
It's okay, well, we have this information about Gus that we had on Twitter that was treated as a canon thing. Which, okay, maybe you can't treat Twitter as canon. But then on the other side of it, we got an answer about Doc and the well and why didn't Wynonna run into Doc when she went to get Peacemaker in episode 1, like in the series premiere. We got that out of episode that answer also outside of the show. We got that episode, in an AMA, I believe, in another interview. So it's kind of hard. It puts us in a really weird situation because it's like, okay, well, what information do we keep?
Yeah.
And it does mess with you a little bit because you're like, okay, this is what is canon. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute, when they show us something different in the show.
And it's not just these interviews and stuff, right? Like you've got the Tumblr thing, like Nicole, I forget what that was called, but yeah,
the Road to Purgatory.
Thank you. So we had that. Now there's this Yarn app and all this. Like you get information, and I think this is what you're the point that you were making. You get information across all of these platforms now. You know what I mean? And in defense of the show, it's got to be very difficult to keep your stories straight everywhere. I mean, it's not like I Love Lucy had to worry about this. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, yeah. So that's kind of how I'm rolling with it, like personally.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, well, you know what? It wasn't on screen, and maybe I shouldn't have treated it as canon. Maybe I should have waited to see how all of this played out. But yeah, anyway, so.
But okay, in some regards, okay, then that gets hard because again, now we have the Wynonna, like Michelle Gibson, in prison versus a facility because the show, what we see on screen is presented like a prison. We are given the impression that she's in prison, and we are told that Waverly has a prison pass.
Yeah.
But then we have out of the show saying, "Oh no, it's a psychiatric facility." So it's hard to navigate.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so it gets very messy, and again, part of why I had trouble with this episode. Because to me, you can't like pick and choose how you're gonna make things like, you can't have, A, B, and C, like you have these three things, but A and C, we get answers outside of the show, and those are canon. B, we had an answer outside of the show, but now we've come back and said that's not correct. So it's just, I have trouble with that.
Right. We can't be the only ones. There's no way, But I don't know, whatever.
And I think that's why it's important that we spent the amount of time that we did talking about this, and hopefully we still have people listening. So hi, people who are still listening.
Y'all are troopers.
Because, I mean, I know I had several conversations with people who were like, wait a minute, what? And like I said, I appreciate the time that, that Emily takes in clarifying plot points for us. And, that she sits down with people to have these postmortems. She sits down with Bridget over at TV Junkies and has these postmortems, and I appreciate that. And I'm not saying I don't appreciate that.
Right.
And once again, for the third time this episode, I love the show. It gets frustrating when we have stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
Because, a couple of things were essentially retconned in this episode. So it gets a little frustrating. And like I said, I mean, I feel free. Feel free to comment and tell me how I'm wrong, or, message the Twitter or whatever and tell me you disagree. That's fine. Like, I will have this conversation. I can literally talk TV for hours. So if you're listening and you're like, well, that doesn't sound right, or I vehemently disagree, the only thing I ask for is politeness and being respectful in the conversation. So I think that's all either of us ask for when we have these conversations. So if you disagree with something we say, and don't like how we're approaching this, let us, have that conversation with us. Because, I know we speak for ourselves. We're not speaking for anybody else. So, but I know we both had a lot of feelings about this episode.
Most of my feelings were vampires, but I had some conflicting emotions.
It happens. Not every episode is gold. Not every episode is going to give you every single thing that you want.
Yeah.
That's how you end up with episodes like Fear Bad and Go Fish on Buffy.
Oh, God. Fear Bad was awful.
It was bad. Ugh. Anyway, back to Wynonna.
Right. You want to talk about Nicole for a second?
Let's talk about Nicole. Okay. You know how much I love Nicole.
I do. So, sort of, kind of getting back, we're sort of getting back into our swing of, making theories, y'all. So, Catherine, I'm wondering if you think it is safe to assume that Nicole was born or raised somewhere within the Ghost River Triangle. And as, a survivor of the cult of Bolshar, she was drawn to Purgatory or deliberately transferred there to find answers. The episode, read to me as though she didn't remember anything about Bolshar or the cult before she heard the name again in season 2. So I'm thinking it's a subconscious thing. But it's also entirely possible that Bolshar is worshipped, the world over, because there are people now traveling in to pay homage to him. So Nicole really could have been born anywhere, I guess, and still been roped into a cult massacre. But, do you think that's... I wonder, what your take on it... did you get the impression that this is, that, the cults are, within the Ghost River Triangle? Because we have... Do you see what I'm saying? We have people traveling in to do these rituals and stuff. So that makes me think maybe she's a native and she just doesn't remember or doesn't know or something like that.
All right. So here's what I think. Because I think that's an interesting theory. I do think she wasn't born in the Triangle.
Okay.
I think that the cult of Bolshar was probably brought back to the Triangle because they somehow knew that he had risen. So he basically brought them to the Triangle in that manner because they were, they did this, there was this massacre, but they were also, because I know there were 3 lines, from the vampires, we didn't do this, the massacre, but they definitely did. We know that they did. So I think Bolshar brought them back. I think Nicole, she can't remember Bolshar. Maybe Purgatory was mentioned, maybe the Triangle was mentioned, maybe it was just a feeling that brought her there, the energy in the Triangle, something about it brought her there. I think there's still a lot to learn about Nicole. There's definitely still a lot to learn about Nicole, but I do think she is not a native of Purgatory.
Okay. Do you think, her parents were, members of this cult? Because I think that could explain maybe why she has nothing to do with them, assuming they're even alive at this point. Now, she's been, it was sort of, said in this episode that she was the only survivor. So now I'm wondering if her parents are even living.
Well, they did. One second, I'm going to look something up to answer your question. While I look that up, though, I am going to mention that is one thing I really did like in that episode, talking about, picking things up from the finale, especially. I did like that, I have talked about this before, where a lot of times, if you're good at what you do, there are no mistakes in certain looks, in ways things are shot. You only have so much time for an episode. You get like 43, 44 minutes, something like that, tops, for an episode. So a lot of times editing is very intentional. Like that cut to Nicole after Bolshar's name is mentioned by Fomerspades in the season 2 finale.
Yeah.
So I did like that they addressed that. I did like that she's like, oh, hey, this is... I liked that. I really did. I appreciated that because, you know, those shots are intentional. They're very intentional when they do things like that. So I did want to mention that now that I've railed enough about the episode itself, but I did want to just throw that out there. So when Nicole is hospitalized in episode 10 of season 2, Nedley does tell Waverly that he had to contact Nicole's next of kin, but not her parents.
Right.
And that's where we find out about the wife.
Yep.
And Waverly tells him that she doesn't speak to her parents.
Okay. She could have run away young, gotten roped into this cult.
Or they could have been victims, and, you know, trauma can do things to your memory.
Yeah, true, yeah.
So, I mean, if she went through a really severe trauma, you know, maybe they're dead and she just, like, she knows that they're dead but doesn't really, like, there's something with, like, the rest of it, something like that. Maybe they were also victims of the cult. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're alive and she doesn't talk to them. So I think it's hard to speculate since we still don't know a lot about Nicole. Yeah, and I think we're learning about Nicole.
Which is exciting.
But all we know is that she doesn't talk to her parents.
Right.
And that's a pretty well-known thing. You know, her boss knows, but obviously her boss would know because she's a cop and she has to have a next of kin written down on her stuff. So she would probably have had that conversation early on if you're in a position like that. So, yeah, I guess my roundabout answer is I don't know.
Okay, I'll take it.
I don't know.
I don't either. I'm asking questions, speculating.
Yeah, see, this is the nice thing about being back for an all-new episode is that I feel like I'm giving a lot more roundabout answers than I normally do. I'm back to my roundabout, let me go look things up, and it's all good. So you're welcome, everybody. But yeah, I am so looking forward to getting Nicole backstory this season. I love Nicole. And it's so nice to see her getting a really good, it looks like she'll be getting a really good story.
Yeah.
I say that now, but if I start railing against it, remind me I said that.
Okay. I'll quote you on it.
Yeah. I have one thing in my observations, and it's literally... I only put one thing there, and I was like, thruple with Wynonna, Doc, and Dolls. That was my observation.
We did, in my observations, we did get, like, a Cool's, like, Doll's development, in that he could not be glamored by these vampires.
Yes.
Unlike the first version of, like, Revenant vamps that we saw in season 1, right? And I think, and, you know, he was absolutely, like, smitten under them, and it was a joke with Wynonna, like, oh, dudes, you know, like, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think it has less to do with the type of vampire that we're dealing with and more to do with Doll's level up, like, last season. Yeah, I think he's more in tune with his power, and I think he has much more substantial power. At least it seems that way to me. Even now, when he's not like going full dragon, like when he's just, you know, when he's just Dolls, he's still sort of protected.
Yeah, I like that, but you know what? The one that surprised me was not Dolls. Because it makes sense, you know, he's dragony. The thing that surprised me was Wynonna not getting glamored.
Yeah.
I want to know what protected her. I want to know if she was just that quick, or if she was able to fight it, or if maybe Peacemaker helped her. You know, Peacemaker's a cool thing. Maybe Peacemaker did something cool. Or maybe it's your favorite topic of Wynonna conversation. That was poorly worded. That's what happens when I try to be cool. No, the necklace. Maybe it was her necklace.
Oh, yeah,
I know, her necklace.
yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. That would be a great way. I do love the necklace. It's come up so many times in our podcast, you guys. But the necklace that she wears has these Greek beads on them called Madi that are supposed to protect against evil eyes and curses. So, in case you haven't gone back, listen to season 1 when we were really talking about it. Anyway, so that would be phenomenal. I would love it if it had something to do with the necklace, but I also think that Peacemaker is the easiest explanation. But at the same time, I feel like this would be a great way to give people answers about the necklace, which she keeps misplacing at crucial moments, and then something awful happens. So, while I hope it's the necklace, I think Peacemaker is most likely.
Yeah, maybe. But like I said, I'm curious because, and even at that last scene, like Wynonna asks the guys, like, oh, what about you guys? And it was like, okay, well, Dragon Dolls, and Doc tried to play it off as something I haven't seen before, but, the character who we only know her as Contessa, but she is played by Chantal Riley, who we've already discussed. Her name will be Kate at some point in the show. We'll find out her name is Kate, but at this point, it's Contessa. The Contessa, or just Contessa. He just calls her Contessa. Either way, sorry, rambly. She didn't try to glamour him. So we don't know if it would have worked on Doc. I'm sure it would have.
Yeah, probably.
But I like how he kind of played that off. It's like, oh, I've seen it all. But it's like, you would have been glamored. And I guess I did give us an opportunity now to talk about Chantal Riley, her appearance in the episode. I was not expecting to see her so soon, I guess, because I've gotten lost in all of the announcements. So I kind of forgot that she was appearing right away. Or we may not have known that. I don't know. I lose track. But interestingly enough, Doc, she's only known so far as the Contessa. But when originally announced, it was announced she's going to be playing a character named Kate. And it was evident in this episode that Doc and her character have some sort of a past. And Doc Holliday had a common law wife named Big Nose Kate.
Woo!
So I'm wondering...
everybody's got a wife.
I know! So I'm wondering if maybe it's the same person? Maybe it's just a nice, convenient situation. But yeah, so fun fact, that we might have Big Nose Kate. We might not. We're not sure. So wanted to throw that out there.
So sort of branching off from what you just said, Contessa tells Doc on the demonic party bus that the vampires are in town to watch the show, like to see Bolshar take back his power, and they're there to offer him fealty, blah, blah, blah. So I think that was a really cool, insight, and what I hope is that, what I hope that statement means is that these vampires are just the first of many new demons to head to purgatory to make their presence known. No disrespect to the Revs, but variety is the spice of life, and we're in season 3 now, so we know how it works with the Revenants. Apparently, she's butchered half of them, so I think that's what I hope we can take away from Contessa's almost throwaway line, is that a lot of new baddies are going to be traveling to the Triangle.
I thought variety was the spice of bad.
See? The Buffy references just keep coming.
I was really, really, really worried I was going to have to explain that to you.
Oh my god.
And I'm really glad I didn't.
Buffy
I know sometimes we just talked about...
I can keep continuity, on, and that is because I've seen it 11 times.
I know. Well, I know we just talked about how you forget things, though, and it's I had this moment of panic, because sometimes I do that, where it's I make jokes like that, and then people don't get it, and then I get sad. So, I'm sorry for doubting you, but I had to get the Buffy reference. Google it if you don't know it.
Yeah.
But, no, as I make a joke out of your point. No, I would like to see what else is coming into the Triangle. Because you're right. I think, if the vampires are drawn there, I think it could be interesting to see what else is drawn there.
Yeah.
And while we're talking again about the vampires and coming into purgatory, I have a question. Would they have been able to get into town had Nedley not been there and invited them in?
Oh, that's delightful. That's a fantastic question. Gosh, I don't know. I would love that to be answered, though. I hopefully, maybe in a forum or in an interview or something like that. gosh, it doesn't, well, I mean, it doesn't usually go for whole cities, right? The invitation thing, but we're dealing with a very, very special, very enchanted area. So I love that, and it's totally possible that maybe what keeps everybody locked in purgatory would have kept vampires locked out if he hadn't been there to roll out the welcome mat.
Yeah. And I mean, it does kind of, like we already mentioned, they did play with vampire mythology in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were in the sunlight. They may not have had legit fangs, you know, they had the pink fog, and, you know, so they could have very well been playing with that aspect of the mythology as well.
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah, I had that question. I was like, wait a minute. Would that have been able to happen?
So another one for you, like, that, like, lieutenant dude who's working for Bolshar.
Yeah.
In the beginning, we see him, like, smear his bloody hand in the club, you know, that they're investigating. He, like, smears his bloody handprint on Michelle Gibson's rodeo flyer, a.k.a. Mama Earp. So, like, why would an agent of Bolshar do that? Like, Wynonna thinks that Michelle has answers, and so do I. But I also think that more than answers, she has a much bigger part to play from Bolshar's side of the board. Otherwise, why would the commando point Wynonna in her direction? Like, he wouldn't unless Michelle had equal value or importance to Bolshar. And we saw in the prison that she is hearing voices talking to herself.
Yes, and so that's what I'm glad you kind of addressed. You mentioned that because, you know, Wynonna mentions that Michelle had mentioned Bolshar's name before.
Yeah.
So we do know there's been a long conversation or a long connection, but the new thing, Michelle is newly having auditory hallucinations. This is like hearing voices is not something that she's been doing because, like, you know, Wynonna mentions that to the warden, that those are new. So, you know, and she makes a very, like, she tells Wynonna that the voice tells her things about Bolshar, and then later yells, "My daughters are off limits," to the voice.
Yeah.
So it's possible that the voice that she's hearing is Bolshar. He is a demon, and he is getting more powerful, so it is possible that those new auditory hallucinations are Bolshar.
And likewise, why would he be talking to her unless he needed her for something?
And so with that too, I mean, she distances herself from the Earp name a lot.
Yep.
In this episode.
And her kids. Yep.
She gets very upset and very, like, that's when she sends Wynonna away, when Wynonna mentions that she's going to break the curse.
Yep.
And along with that, there was a big emphasis on the original families of Purgatory. It's possible that Michelle is also a descendant from one of the original families.
Yeah.
Which would also lead into, it's been emphasized that, you know, Waverly is not an Earp. Waverly is not an Earp. We kind of got teased with the AU where it's like, maybe there was more to Waverly being Waverly Gibson than just Gus took her in. So maybe the Gibsons were part of that. And this came up in Whiskey and Donuts, so credit to Emma, who, I don't know if you listened, but crediting you from Whiskey and Donuts, who was the first to throw this out, if Waverly is from one of the original families, because, you know, it doesn't seem like the vampires would make such a huge mistake as, you know, Waverly's not an Earp, so it seems like the vampires wouldn't make that mistake and still send her in with the original families. So that's part of it, like, maybe, you know, Waverly's still a Gibson, so maybe the Gibsons are one of the old families. I'm doing a lot of very roundabout conclusion-y things. I apologize. I really apologize. I'm having an off day, apparently, so I'm so sorry, guys.
I like that, though, and I don't have any conclusion for this, but I do wonder, like, what would have happened had the vampires been successful in sacrificing the original families of Purgatory to Bolshar? Like, what effect would that have had on him? Is Bolshar cursed in a similar way as he cursed the Earps, you know what I mean? Or, you know, for every reaction, there's an equal but opposite reaction, right? And, you know, the rule of 3 in magic and all that stuff. So did he lock himself into purgatory by cursing the, the Earps? I don't know.
And it is interesting that it's very vague about what Bolshar wants. It's just the head vampire dude, who I'm sure has a name, but I don't care. He tells him, that VIPs will be offered up as tribute to Bolshar for him to do what he wants. So it's not even very clear. Mm-hmm. It's not like, oh, they're going to be sacrificed or whatever. It's, them giving them to Bolshar and saying, here you go. Here you go. Yeah. Like, we have no idea what exactly is happening. I hope we'll find out. But it's definitely, I'm interested to see how Michelle ties into this. I'm interested to see what happens with Bolshar. Also, I feel like I need to mention, because I think I brought it up when the season 3 trailer came out, I looked at the guy and I'm like, I think that's Bolshar. And I was like, really happy when at the end of this episode, he popped up and it was Bolshar. Yeah. So, points for Catherine. Woo! Sorry. Sometimes I'm a child and I need to be validated a lot for small things. So.
You're such a good.
Yes. But no, I mean, as per usual, we have a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. I still have questions.
I'm kind of random, but I thought it was neat. I believe the tarot card that Doc was holding just before Wynonna walked into Shorty's was the Lover's card. I thought that was a nice touch. Likewise, the vampire that Wynonna faced in the barn was called Cayman, Kamen, which is a variant spelling of Cayman, Khayman, which is one of the oldest vampires in Anne Rice's The Vampire Chronicles. It was like one of the original vampires in her series.
Really?
Yeah. So I thought that kind of, the fangirl in me freaked out over that. It's also the name of my most feral and murderous cat, who I loved very much.
Thank you for the Anne Rice lesson and the insight into your demon cat.
I told you it was random.
I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you. Because it's been a long time since I was anywhere near Anne Rice anything, so thank you.
You're welcome.
For that knowledge drop. Do you have anything about the Lover's Tarot card?
Like, what it means, or to pull the Lover's Tarot, or? Mm-hmm. Well, it
seems pretty self-explanatory, but I know usually there's deeper meanings to everything.
Yeah, and I do have an interest in tarot. I wouldn't say it's as keen an interest as my interest in astrology, but, it's typically a positive card. It's not always necessarily about love, and that's the sort of tricky thing with tarot, is that the card can look very obvious or direct, but it also depends on, was he just pulling a card randomly from the deck and that's what he pulled? Because sometimes people do that with their tarot cards. I do it sometimes. Sometimes I'll just put my hand on the deck and I'll pick one up and I'll just think about the card that I pulled or something like that. So he could have been doing that, and then Wynonna walks in and he's like, sign from the universe. But typically the cards themselves are dependent on, their meaning is very flexible. What kind of a pattern, if he was doing a spread, what kind of a spread was he doing? Was it right side up? Was it upside down? All those things, was it in the past? Was it in the present? Where did it fall in the spread? That kind of thing. So oh gosh, I could have just said this so much simpler. So because he was...
Welcome to my world!
I'm sorry, you guys. I freaked out about tarot. But because we just saw him staring at one card, right? I think we can just take that at face value and say, Lover's card, and there's Wynonna. Or Lover's card, and he's got some history with Contessa. That sort of thing. I think we can keep it very basic because we didn't see him doing a full-on reading, or
right.
He wasn't laying out a full spread or anything.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And You may apologize for going on a lengthy tarot ramble, but you know that was exactly what I was hoping for when I asked you about it.
Happy to deliver.
I enjoy it
for that. I'm sorry. I should have, yeah.
I was really expecting you to. That's why I asked.
Well,
I was,
yeah, off the cuff, that's what I can tell you about tarot.
Yeah, hey, thank you. Because it's been a long time since I even looked into tarot, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, we mentioned the original families thing. I did want to mention that apparently Nedley is a descendant of the original families, because we do have Jeremy telling him he'll make a great vampire.
Yeah.
So that seems to be the indication that they were turning the original families or something like that, because everybody else was going to be food. So it seems that Nedley might also be from one of the original Purgatory families.
Nedley's VIP.
So it seems that way.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but it seems that way.
You know, just sort of another like really random thing. You know, in the beginning, Wynonna tells us that Doc won't talk to her unless they're training or he's angry. So she's keeping him training and she's keeping him angry. And I just thought it was really honest that, like, even rage is better than being ignored. Like, anger is something that can be stoked or processed or harnessed or directed. And indifference is just nothing. It's a void.
Yeah. Feelings are better. No. No, yeah, it was... Thank you for bringing that up as well. See? I appreciate you. Because you bring up all the stuff that I don't even think about. Like, I wouldn't think to bring that up. One of the things I thought was interesting with the vampire things, when Wynonna asked the head vampire about Belshar at the end, he mentions the curse, and he calls it an endless curse. All who Wyatt Earp killed rise from the dead as revenants, and his chosen descendant hunts him down. And his chosen descendant hunts them down again and again. And I thought that was interesting that he used the phrase chosen descendant.
Yeah.
It's the first time we've heard that in regards to the Earp curse. So I thought that was a little interesting that was how that was worded with somebody who seems to have an understanding of Belshar, that, seems to be close-ish to Belshar.
It would be really cool, too, if... Sorry, you just made me think of this. It would be really cool, too, if Peacemaker was the thing that was choosing the descendants. Because we've seen Peacemaker decide to work and decide not to work. We've seen it work in Waverly's hands. We've seen it work in Willa's. We've seen it, work in Wynonna's. Wynonna was able to kill Ward with it. So that would also be cool, if that's what it means. If chosen descendant means, the person that Peacemaker decides to work for.
Yeah, I had that same thought because a friend brought up that line and thought it was interesting and a little odd that this is the first time we're hearing of a chosen descendant, with how the Earp curse has normally been presented. But yeah, my first thought was Peacemaker, because you're right. We see Peacemaker make a choice to work or not to work. We see it. I mean, it's a very sentient gun. So, also, I'm still curious as to how Belshar is saving the triangle, so that's intriguing. But, I thought the chosen descendant thing was really interesting. So I've got, a couple of random things, like, it was kind of fun. Jeremy has a Doc stash.
Yeah.
So, his, crush on Doc, I think, has reached a new level. I think it's safe to say. Also, one of my first thoughts when we see that the Shorty's patrons were taken out by the vampires, they kind of deserved it for all laughing at Doc. Like, I mean, he's in their damn bar. Wow, I worded that poorly. Oh my god! They're in his damn bar. So, to be, like, laughing at him when he's having some sort of wonky, like, nightmare or whatever it is that we're seeing, they're laughing at him, and look what happens. They get eaten.
Word.
So, I think that's, maybe tip your bartender and tip the owner of the bar instead of, laughing at him. I think that's the message here.
That's a takeaway.
Well, he lost his bartender. It doesn't look like he's got somebody else in there. So, yeah, maybe if people weren't jerks, they'd be better off. They'd be alive. So, that's today's message. Almost as good as, that time that I said Tucker, deserved the frostbite or whatever it is that I said. No, I victim blamed him for the frostbite. That's what I did. Oh, one more little piece of thing that was weird. That was kind of a bit of a retcon thing. Up until this point, we were told that Michelle left like 2 years before Ward was killed, and then this episode says 6 months. So that was just another thing that I felt like I had to address, and I couldn't leave it alone because I can't leave things alone.
Noted.
So I do find it interesting that, not interesting, but oh yeah, the opening credits. I don't know if you noticed the opening credits changed. They tweaked them a little bit like they do every year. And they have the opening credits feature creepy trees with like eyes.
Mm.
And one of the things, I'm going to mention the yarn text again. One of the things that was kind of throughout the yarn episodes, was there's something off about the woods, and creepy freaking trees kept like popping up.
Oh, cool.
And I mean, also at the end, Bolshar's right hand dude does force feed a wonky looking demon walnut seed or whatever, demon walnut like seed looking thing to the vampire. So somebody in Whiskey and Donuts theorized that Bolshar was turning the vampire into a tree. So like maybe that's where the wonky trees are coming from.
Yeah, the first time that I watched that, I actually thought he was going to shove garlic in his mouth, and then I had to go back.
Oh, that would have been badass.
Yeah, I know. And then I had to go back and I had to rewatch it, and I was like, oh, it's not that. And then I just didn't care. I was just like, well, whatever then. I was mad about it. I was like, oh, I really wanted that to be garlic. But that makes it, that observation makes it really cool. So, yeah, I'm
like
not mad anymore.
I pulled it from Whiskey and Donuts, so sometimes I like to hang out in there just because people have good theories, and I like to write them down and then talk about them. So, thank you to people who they steal your theories. But no, I mean, I give you credit. But I thought that was interesting because we did have the creepy tree situation, and I had one more. I have questions. I thought I was nearly done, and this always happens. I'm like, oh, I think I'm done, but I'm not. I do kind of want to know when Nicole was glamored, since we see, presumably she and Waverly went into the bathroom and together, and Nicole was not glamored, like, prior to Wynonna and Waverly getting to the club, because she didn't kind of present that way,
So I think that when they were all in the barn, and Nicole came in, and she was like, hey, I just got a call, I got to go to the whatever, and then she left, they were following her. So I think that Petra was probably already in the club. I think she was like lurking there. And when Nicole showed up by herself, she got glamored. Then she went through the rest of, like everything else. And yeah, it came out later that she'd already been glamored.
The only thing that doesn't gel about that with me is she wasn't really acting any different. And she even had that panic attack. And when, we see Nedley walk out of that club, we know he's been glamored. And his attitude is, oh, they didn't do this. So it's like, and the vampires are part of that cult. So if Nicole was glamored, wouldn't she, I don't know.
The warm fuzzies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And react differently and maybe not have had that panic attack that sent her into the bathroom.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. I see your problem with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a question I had. I was like, oh, well, there was time for her to get glamored, but then I was like, oh, wait a minute. And
she wasn't
alone. I even rewatched to see if maybe because it's, we get a very deliberate, Waverly spends a lot of time talking to the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, it was established that Petra can't be seen in the mirror.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, oh, maybe she was maybe she walked past, behind Waverly and got to Nicole that way. But
I actually like that even more.
And you know me, because, again, I'm nitpicky and anal retentive. I watched that scene, the stall door doesn't open.
Yeah, but all she would have to do is drop down and grab her ankle, right?
Yeah, I guess. But do you see Petra doing that?
I don't know. I barely knew her. I was so sad about it.
I know. No, I know. Also, random fun fact, but we've mentioned her name so many times. Petra was actually named after a fan. When they did I believe it was the Spirit Day fundraising, when a group of Earpers did the Spirit Day fundraising, Emily and the writers offered up, hey, we'll randomly pick somebody who donates and use your name for a character in season 3. So,
that's fun.
That was that character. Yes. So, fun fact. So, yeah, I'm kind of curious as to when Nicole got glamored, but maybe you're right. Maybe it is as simple as she, kind of reached in under there and grabbed her foot or something. So, maybe. And I had one more thing. I really wish Nicole had been at the gathering at Shorty's at the end.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
It's because it still feels like she's not exactly part of the group. Sometimes. Yeah. So, yeah, I do wish she'd been in the gathering. But I'm finally done going through my notes. Because as per usual, it took me forever. But now it's time for quotes!
Quotes!
And I forgot to cut down my list, so I have a lot. In shocking news, I have a long list.
Well, then kick us off.
I liked, I kind of like the Nicole and Waverly with the gun. Nicole, like, you don't even like the Dragunov. You said it lacked grace. And she's like, I don't need grace. Waverly's like, I don't need grace. I need steely Soviet precision. And then she, takes up somebody. It's great. So
I thought that was good. I liked Waverly's, come on, Wynonna, don't Earp this up.
Yeah, I had that on my list, too.
That was good.
Just Wynonna yelling at, yo, PDA, focus. I just enjoy it every time she, does stuff like that.
I liked Wynonna's jab at Doc. You fight like you're 180 years old. I'm 166. Yeah. That was funny.
Yeah. And then when Nicole interrupts him in the bar, hey, sorry to interrupt. That's my move. So I like that kind of nod to the because we talked about interrupting Wynonna as a fandom and stuff like that. And Wynonna with Nedley. What the hell? Nedley, if you're looking for creepy, that neckerchief takes it to the next level. And then, do you like it? It's European. I'm trying to make a good impression. On who? Mr. Darcy? And that was where we got Waverly's British accent.
I liked right after that when Wynonna said, come on, Emily Bronte, and Waverly said, it's Jane Austen.
I know. And I missed it the first time because I didn't have subtitles. But when Wynonna's telling Nedley that they'll deal with it, it's like, whatever it is, we'll deal, unless it's an army of Jason Momoas that have been cloned. I will handle it solo.
Yeah.
And then Waverly's like, she's such a giver. And then Wynonna actually says, hope Aquaman is too.
Yeah.
So that made me laugh. Okay, I have a lot from that initial, interaction. Because Wynonna makes a joke about putting shrooms in Nedley's coffee, too.
Yeah, that was funny. I like in the club when Nicole is like, dolls gave me, these documents and everything. And, Wynonna calls him Xavier Pamela, dolls or something like that. And Nicole's like, pretty sure his middle name's not Pamela. Wynonna's like, do you know what it is?
That was actually next on my list to mention. So I like that one too. We already talked about Oh You Made Me Pee a Little.
Yeah, the entire bathroom had so many quotes.
Yeah. Her name is Petra. She's a vampire and I love her.
Right? Best crime scene ever.
Doc, this is not smoke, it is fog. Kind of sexy fog. And then a little bit later, Jeremy, vampires in purgatory? More critically, in my damn bar. Oh, Doc.
I like when that, commando guy walked in and Wynonna was to the club, and Wynonna was like, hey bud, if you're looking for your 8 seconds of glory on the mechanical bull, she's currently out of order due to a hella homicide spree. Also, there was some music.
Oh, just Doc. I really miss the days you could just shoot a man for laughing at you.
I like
that. Doc. A man out of time.
I really like Jeremy's. I have to ask, Thoughts on Twilight?
Yes. I know, my reaction, I'm like, damn, Jeremy, you're lucky he didn't kill you right there. Nobody told me Taco Tuesday was now a formal affair.
Yeah, that was good. Please be a surprise Rihanna concert.
Yeah. When are humans going to stop their rampant prejudice against vampires, who are the best? And then, like, a bit later, it's like, we can't kill Wynonna. We love Wynonna. And then Nicole going, oh!
We kind of touched on this moment before, but Jeremy's,
Yeah.
I am so proud of you, Sheriff. You are going to be such a good vampire. And you, son, are going to be delicious. But I especially love the way they, like, hug it out afterward.
I know.
So cute.
And I touched on this one earlier, too, with dolls, like, knocking on the coffin, and Wynonna, she, come in, and then, that was more cramped than the canoe I lost my virginity in. Like, Wynonna, it's worse than, like, the backseat of a pickup. That's gotta be terrible. And, I really hope it was Waverly who dressed me, but the gloves scream Jeremy.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, Purgatory is for the living, mostly, from Nedley, as he stakes a vampire. I love Nedley. What else did you have?
No, that was it for me.
Of course it was, because once again, I had more than you do.
I just get sick of typing the quotes, I think. I'm just like, oh, the whole show's funny. God.
You'd think I get sick of typing them, considering, the amount of time I spent when I was doing this, but I haven't it hasn't happened yet. No, I just like her, speaking of your god-awful mustache, when's the last time you saw Doc? To Jeremy. And then when Wynonna asks how it felt to be glamored, and, Waverly's like, warm? Tingly? Like peeing in the shower? It's like, yes, Wynonna, I'm sure it was exactly like that. Okay, now I'm done.
All right.
And, I mean, that wraps us up.
Woo!
So, this looks like it might be a lengthy episode, but I'm not sorry about it. If I say that now, I'll be sorry, I'm sure, when I'm editing it.
Yeah.
Careful what you wish for. No, so I think that's about everything I needed to mention. Was there anything else that you might have remembered or anything that you've got on your list?
No, I'm good.
Alrighty. Well, with that, let's wrap it up. So thank you, everybody, for listening. We really appreciate it. Make sure to let us know your thoughts and theories now that we're fresh into a new episode. You know how much we like to talk about them, and we generally will talk about those theories on an episode. So, hey, talk to us. Let us know. And you can do that by finding us on Twitter at 4YE_MYP podcast. And you can also, we're still not on iTunes, so the only places to listen are on the 4YE site and YouTube. And like I said, our YouTube is just for your excitement, and that's the number 4. And you can find the website at 4ye.co.uk. You can find it there. So make sure you let people know about because I know I've seen people asking for podcast recommendations. So yeah, just make sure people know that we're not on iTunes, and we're trying to work on it still. So sorry, I know it's easier. We know it's a lot easier. But thank you to everybody who does give us shout outs, and who does retweet us and everything. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's because we do know it makes it a little bit hard with the lack of the iTunes stuff. So, you can find me on Twitter at cmeushaw. That's at CMEUSHAW. And Laura, where can they find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter at RSMayfair.
Alrighty, and since I forgot to do this at the beginning of the episode, we're going to round this episode out with a fun commercial courtesy of the folks over at the Earp Fiction Addiction podcast. So thank you again if you're listening for that, and make sure to check them out, and all of the other many Earper podcasts. And there's like 10 Minutes in Purgatory, there's Earpsplain, there's Tales of the Black Badge. I know I'm missing some. I'm sorry. that I did that on the fly and now I regret everything. So thanks for
Regret
listening,
everything.
guys.
Thanks, you guys.
And we'll see you next week for episode 2.
Make Your Peace podcast is the Wynonna Earp fan podcast that digs deep into every episode, not only providing comprehensive recaps, but also delving into character relationships and motivations. Hosts Catherine and Laura take their time exploring all of the nooks and crannies of each action-packed episode, puzzling over and speculating on moments you may have missed. If you enjoy a good discussion of your favorite sci-fi show, then this podcast is definitely for you. You can find Make Your Peace podcast on Twitter at 4YE_MYP podcast, where you will find links to their latest episodes. Make Your Peace podcast. Dig a little deeper.